there's just no way that what the Houthis were doing, they would continue to do that with impunity, and there would not be a reaction from the United States. The United States as the sole superpower of the world uh, is responsible for freedom of navigation. It cannot afford to allow anybody to interdict with that, interfere with the free navigation, the commercial ships sailing through different arteries and waterways. I mean, that just disrupts global commerce. So there was just no way that would. It was only a matter of time that these airstrikes. And in fact, in my other interviews in the mainstream media, I've been basically saying, look, uh, this took some time. I was actually expecting it much earlier because what are we? We're now 3 months out from since the Houthis started attacking. So uh, it's understandable why it took that long, because you are basically signaling to the Houthis through various channels that, look, you should stop this. We don't want to escalate. So it's in your interest to not do this. Obviously, that signaling happens through Iran because Iran is the patron of the Houthis. There are many channels between Washington and Tehran, and there are other indirect channels as well. As you know, that Foreign Minister of India, Mr. Jay Shankar, is due in the Iranian capital, and that's after the phone call with Secretary Blinken. So the conversation will continue, but because the Houthis were continuing and there was no let up, this had to be done because you can't keep saying pretty please in the hope that at some point the adversary will back off. If you just keep saying don't do it, and then you do not back up your public statements with a credible deterrence, then they're going to continue doing it. It only emboldens the other side. Does this solve everything? No, it's a process. It will take time. And I don't expect that the Houthis are going to go quiet. They're now in reassess, reevaluate mode, and they have to figure out what they need to do next. And Iranians have to figure out what they need to do next. For now, there's a pause. You got their attention, and now they have to see, what they want to do. Now, if they come back, which I expect them to, I don't expect them to just go quietly into the night. Then, the US will have to assess and say, okay, what do we do next? So this is like an escalatory ladder. Hopefully it doesn't go that way, but this is the natural process of move, counter move in a situation like this.
So, Kamran, do you see, you did mention about the escalation of this war. My first question to you would be that did Iran underestimated the resolve of United States in this matter? That they just thought that, okay, they will just say things, but they weren't gonna do anything. Number two, what they want to achieve, did they expect that US would just back off and tell Israel to stop bombing in Gaza? And my second question to you is that escalation, can it get to escalation to the extent where the US jets bombing in Iran or Irani targets, or what do you see that all this scenario?
So look, I think the Iranians are very, very sophisticated. I don't think that they were underestimating the United States. I do think that they knew that at some point the United States will come in. But until we reach that point, why stop? So, what is it that the US will do initially and when, from an Iranian point of view? So first they're going to use diplomacy. So until they use diplomacy, we continue, And then when they do come in, they're going to do targeted airstrikes. The Houthis are battle hardened, so they're going to take out some facilities. They're going to degrade some capabilities. It's not like the Houthis will lose power in Yemen. The Americans are not going to come in on the ground. These are going to be airstrikes, time limited, and limited by also by the number of targets. So that was an acceptable cost, and therefore they were willing to go that far until the U.S. draws that red line and say, hey, this far, no further, and then we'll reassess. So I think the Iranians were not under any illusion. They're sophisticated geopolitical chess players, but they are taking advantage of one thing. It's not resolve.
Hmm.
It's the fact that the United States had been signaling that we do not want this war in Gaza to become a broader regional war. I
Hmm.
think they exploited that fully. I think that it's a natural thing that Washington has been saying. I don't think it's necessarily the wrong things to say, but you don't stop there when you're dealing with an actor like Iran that's going
Hmm.
to push until they get pushed back. So
Hmm.
I think that was sort of the response from the U.S. was incomplete. Of
Hmm.
course, you say, look, we don't want an escalation, but then you also, don't say this for too long to
Hmm.
where the other side isn't believing you. You have to, when you say something, then you have to match it with a show of force.
Hmm.
And some of that was done. I mean, we brought in the USS Ford and in the USS Eisenhower into the Arabian Sea. The
Hmm.
USS Ford was brought closer to the Levant in the Eastern Med. But there was it's perceptions and misperceptions.
Hmm.
The late Robert
So,
Jervis, scholar
uh,
of conflict, would explain that each side is perceiving things in a certain way and also at the same time misperceiving. So
hmm.
this is a very complicated game. As for the worst case scenario that you're asking, look, if this does not stop, if somehow I doubt that the Iranians are going to be, after what has happened, will just sort of continue doing what they're doing. They're going to change track. They're going to try to do something different. They're not going to completely back off, but they're not going to keep pushing because they know that that pathway uh, ultimately leads to direct U.S. airstrikes on Iran. I'm not
Hmm.
saying it's going to happen, but
Hmm.
what I am saying is that if you keep going up the escalatory ladder,
Hmm.
that will be the conclusion, or not conclusion, but that will be the outcome.
Hmm.
Where if by striking the Houthis, by striking militias in Syria and Iraq, by striking, taking action against Hezbollah, if the Iranians are not backing off, then the next thing will be to go out directly after Iran. And by the way, I mean, this is something that's already being talked in American papers. I mean, there have been several articles in the Wall Street Journal calling for this.